From the very beginning, let's establish the most important key to your personal career success if you intend to work as a quality assurance manager inside the IT industry. For example, if you are working for bank or banking industry, you obviously need to have some knowledge about how banking works. If you are employed for insurance company, you obviously need to have a basic knowledge about different type of insurances and how you charge your insurance premiums. If you are working for any type of manufacturing, you obviously need to have a basic knowledge about your particular industry, specific knowledge. If you are working for automotive industry, you need to know and understand how cars are manufacturing and how to test them. If you are working for telecom or employed for telecom industry, you need to understand how telecom works. If you are working for any type of healthcare, it's pretty huge industry. You obviously want to understand before you start working as quality assurance manager or any management position. You obviously need to understand how your particular healthcare area is working. Any online shopping, it's huge industry. Also, you need to understand before you start planning your quality assurance tests, you need to understand how it works from the end to end. Means from front end web page to back end database. Any aeronautics, like plane, space, anything you want. There is a lots of software there, lots of chips, so you need to understand it also. So the bottom rule for this is the key to success: know your particular industry area business. I can tell you from myself, based on my own subjective experience, that even if you move from industry to industry, it takes you up to 6 months from floating to become understanding, and after 2 years, you will become fluent in your area. Next, let's review IT industry quality manager major responsibilities. Obviously, you are responsible for project requirements test metrics when you match your test cases against specific customer requirements. Obviously, you are responsible for project quality management plan development. And obviously, you are fully responsible for managing planned test executions for defect lifecycle also. Let's compare them. So you are responsible, you have to watch schedule because each project has a deadline. You need to work with human resources. You need to have some kind of skills there. And you need to watch time because at the end, when the project ends, you have to deliver. Next area, average quality assurance manager skill set. What might be required? First of all, you need to have some kind, if you want to work like senior business analyst or senior quality assurance engineer, or you're gonna be some kind of test lead or test manager or quality assurance manager, you need to have some kind of business skills, basic business skill set. Then you might need to understand financial area because any project execution and quality assurance part is bound to financial responsibilities. You need to understand some kind of HR or human resources and obviously, need to have some kind of soft skills to work with your team. You need to understand how people works and during, for example, when you're planning something versus when you're executing something, some changes in your team might happen. And obviously, you need to understand and have some kind of practical experience working with Microsoft Office applications. Let's go next. Now, typical quality assurance manager qualification. Let's review. You need to understand how quality control works, what quality control is at all, because quality control is continuously responsible in your organization for monitoring control. What's the difference between quality control and quality assurance? Right now, I can tell you that quality assurance is bound to your particular executable project. Additionally, you might be aware about some kind of test automation, so-called engineering. Simply speaking, test automation. Sometimes people simply call it automation. And finally, you need to understand that upper level of quality control is user acceptance, when end user is accepting your tested product. 4 levels, as you can see. Let's go next. For example, you need to have some kind of basic understanding about networking. For example, so-called OSI model starts with physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. You can stop and read if you want to. But basically speaking, the OSI, Open System Interconnection model, describes how networked system architecture communicate and is most helpful in describing network protocols and services. The OSI model is called a reference model because it's rarely used in practical applications. The OSI 7-layer model illustrates how information moves from a sender to receiver and back again. What for do you need all this knowledge? Because you need to understand your particular organization network architecture topology. For example, you might need to understand your network topology in your architecture different types. You need to read the connectivity, network connectivity in your organization, how you communicate there. Need to be able to separate and distinguish, for example, application server versus web server. In addition, you might be able to distinguish between different types of mainframes, for example, AS400 and mainframe Ramba. Next, as any management person, you might need to have basic understanding about cloud providers' service models. Any cloud providers, there are major 3 of them, are divided in 3 levels. Software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Let's start from the bottom. Actually, let's start from the top. Software as a service at the apex is end users. For example, when you simply rent or lease some kind of software like Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365 from some kind of cloud provider. Platform as a service is used for application developers actually. And if you want to fully rely your service on your cloud service provider, you can rent infrastructure as a service, which includes all 3. Now, let's take a look, because as a manager or any management person, you might need to be able to understand and distinguish between three major cloud providers. Let's start with Microsoft Azure, or simply Azure, is good in integration with Microsoft products and services, with enterprise solutions and recommended to specialized organizations providing services like health, banking, insurance, telecom, software, government, etc. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, is known for its extensive services, global reach, and mature ecosystem, and recommended to commercial organizations providing services like online product sale and direct delivery, warehouse distribution, etc. And finally, Google Cloud Platform, Google GCP, is strong in data analytics, machine learning, containerization, and recommended to high-tech commercial organizations specializing in providing research and development, high-tech innovative technology services required urgently on a demand in present time. Remember three of them. As a manager, you simply need to be able to understand which one is for what kind of cloud provider services. When we continue with major programming languages, as a person who wants to work in quality assurance in IT industry, you might be able to need them. C++, extension from C language, one of the pioneers. C#, Microsoft Visual Studio language, competitor to Java. Java, competitor to C++ and C#. Actually, Java was based as a competitor to C++. Groovy is Java-like language. Swift for banking language. Visual Basic still exists and perfectly works as same as C# in Microsoft Visual Studio. Python, great competitor on the market, especially used in artificial intelligence approach. PHP is used for web forms. These three are used together. JavaScript, cascading style sheets. This one animal, nice animal, is COBOL. Common business-oriented language. Very specific one for mainframes. I recommend you to learn at least basics of it. Perl is still used, and it could be quite exotic ones. For example, Ruby or MATLAB. The name itself gives you an understanding of what it's used for. Let's go next. Now you have basic understanding about major programming languages about which existence you might know. Let's go next. Major databases which are used. As very stable IBM DB2. It's for mainframe. Microsoft SQL Server, excellent product. Oracle, good old stable. SQLite is a younger competitor. Specific, highly specialized MongoDB. PostgreSQL, also specialized and competitor to SQLite. MySQL, competitor to SQLite mostly. Or some exotic ones like Redis. And very good, highly reliable and stable, Microsoft Access. Now, let's review for your personal subjective understanding typical programming languages IDE pairs. What IDE stands for? Integrated development environment. Simply speaking, a software package where you develop using particular language your personal software product. First of all, Python is mostly used with PyCharm. PyCharm specifically created around Python. Java is used within Eclipse. Eclipse specifically was developed for Java. C# is used with Microsoft Visual Studio. Very organic, very stable, and very maintained. JavaScript is used in Microsoft Visual Studio Code or VS Code. VS Code actually is very good IDE for any type of languages. And for example, Groovy, Java-like, is used with IntelliJ. IntelliJ was specifically developed for Groovy. Such pairing. Next, let's review typical automation testing toolsets for test automation development or engineering. For example, Java is good with Selenium and in Eclipse might be. Python is used for so-called robot automation framework. JavaScript is used with modern automation frameworks to very good test automation framework like Playwright and Cypress. Playwright, remember it, Playwright and Cypress. And Groovy language is used in Catalan, Studio, and SOAP UI. For example, you can develop scripts there.